Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back 1% of the account's net revenue to the planet at no cost to you. There's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement, and there's no minimum balance required. The 1% for the Planet checking account, only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
The Bachelorette
and Friends.
From first love to happy ever after.
What's that?
From dating to dick pics.
Oh my. Oh no!
The Bachelorette and Friends. Oh, I love a good dick.
This podcast contains sexual references, coarse language, and adult themes from the beginning and throughout. It is not recommended for listeners under the age of 15.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Bachelorette and Friends. I'm your host, Carla Anita Matiazzo, and today's guest is Stewart McMillan. He is the creative director at Awkward Productions. Welcome, Stu, to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So should we tell everybody how we met?
Actually, yes, but before we do, can you tell me, when you pronounce your last name, do you always have to put the Italian accent on? Or
yeah,
like, is that a law? Is that rule?
It's a law. It's a fucking law. Yeah.
Got it.
Of course I do, yeah.
So when I say McMillan, I should do my Scottish accent. Okay, got it.
Can we hear it? Do the Scottish accent over your last name.
McMillan, it's kind of, you can barely hear it because it rolls off the tongue. So you've got to say McMillan. It's Stewart James McMillan.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it so much.
Thank you.
Oh, so cool.
But yes, how we met, the sordid details. Do you want the PG version? Or?
No, this is not a PG podcast. You give the actual legit how, because it's a good story. It's a cute little meet cute, so to speak.
Well, you might be correcting me, but this might not be the first incident. But the memory I have of meeting you is Luke and myself coming off stage. I think it was either a rehearsal or something.
It was a tech run,
just
I think. Yeah.
The tech run, and just this. I was about to say little voice, but you don't have a little voice. But this booming Italian voice. Can anyone help me with my zip? Excuse me. And Luke and I mean, we didn't even know you were talking to anyone specific. We just sort of turned, and you're just there with this ball gown and like sort of like off the shoulder looking at both of us. And I just sort of like pushed Luke in. I'm like, you got this, pal. You got the supple fingers. Go for it. So that's my memory, but you can...
it's true. That's exactly what it was. So, my designer, who's also a fashion designer in her own right, Greta Kate, she does my cabaret stuff. I fucking love her shit. She's amazing. But this gown was structured like a wedding dress. So it literally needed somebody to flatten and push the corset part of the dress so that the buttons could be done. And I just couldn't do it by myself. So I was flattening the corset at the front and Luke was doing the buttons at the back because they're like the wedding dress buttons. Yeah, so that's how we became acquainted.
That's literally it, yeah. And that incident also led us to figure out that there was a dressing room there because no one told us there was that dressing room. So
yeah, well, that sounds about right.
Yeah, we're just getting naked like by the side of the stage or whatever, and no one said a word. So anyway.
But as artists, we don't really care. Like,
we didn't care at all, but there was seats in there. There was a kettle, I think there was. I was like, okay, let's see how it is.
Yeah. Well, it was a bit hard in that venue because it was an empty warehouse and unless you knew where things were specifically, it was easy to miss stuff, I think.
I mean, it was a cool venue, like how open it was and old and all that. But, very empty, drafty castle vibe.
Yeah, and it's so unfortunate that they had to change the venue at the last minute.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. That was, poor guys, that was a nightmare for them. So to bring the listeners up to speed, this podcast is based on the premise of my award-winning cabaret show, The Catch-a-Lorette. There's always a catch, where I talk and sing about my first love to what I thought was happy ever after and everything in between. So let's start at crushes. Stu, can you remember your first crush and paint a picture for us if you can?
See, I remember my first girlfriend was in primary school. I never forget. It was the first girl, this little blonde girl that I'd ever sort of looked at, and yeah, just felt those emotions, those things. But as far as crushes go, I think like the first time I remember, for me, I feel like a crush was something that I couldn't obtain. So therefore, there was this other girl, I don't mind saying her name, Dominic, because I still talk to her, and she was everyone's crush. She was this little, really sporty, really cute blonde girl, very, very flirty, but in like a really nice way. And yeah, she was everyone's crush. Everyone loved Dominic, and she was such a nice girl. And she was my first crush, but once again, this is primary school, and crushes became, as I'm sure you're aware, crushes became way more serious in high school because there was politics involved and, all this hierarchy that you suddenly were thrust into. I mean, everyone thought they were, growing in from grade 7 to grade 8, as you used to do, there was no concept of cool, really. And then suddenly, I don't know, then suddenly you've got year 8 and you're like, oh, I've got a crush on you. And she goes, well, I'm in the cool group and you're still playing with Matchbox cars, so no. And then you figure out, you're like, oh, okay. So.
Very, very good imitation of a 12-year-old girl, Stu. That was very good. That was very good.
Thank you.
Excellent. So did any of your crushes, I know you were saying that they're unobtainable, and look, yeah, you're right. Even as an adult, I feel like when I've had crushes on people, I'm like, yeah, that's unattainable and it'll go away when it goes away. Were there any crushes that eventuated into anything in high school?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, once I figured out that I'm the funny guy, once I got that, once I was like, okay, I'm not the sporting jock dude, I'm the funny guy. That's my in. So I just sort of changed my tactics. So it's like in high school, yeah, I did okay with girls just because I was that funny guy. Yeah. I was that funny guy. I was that guy that made them laugh. And if you can outsmart a jock, sure, a jock can run fast and far, but if they can't hold a conversation, you learn that very quickly that they're not the guy. I'm not saying anything about jocks. I've got some great friends that are jocks. My best friend Brad used to be a jock, and I mean, he's not the smartest guy in the world, but he's a great lover.
I'm so glad we cleared that up. So in high school, I like to say relationships in high school are like training wheels, because you kind of work out with any responsibility pressure as an adult, you kind of work out your boundaries, so to speak, what you like, what you don't like. You start to, just really find your feet a little bit with relationships. So I don't necessarily count them as legitimate relationships. I count them more as a rehearsal or a training period. Do you have any of those relationships that you can recount for the listeners?
Oh, for sure. I mean, and once again, this is from my personal experience, but also as a guy, it must be completely different for girls. But I definitely remember those dates where it's like, okay, as a guy, you're expected to pick them up. And when I say pick them up in high school, it's get your mum or your dad to pick them up with you, be the gentleman, pay for the popcorn at the movies, make sure it's the movie they want to see. And it's even funny when you're in high school and you think, oh, well, a movie is the perfect date, but in essence it's not, because you don't talk. You take a stranger to a room. You take a stranger to a room and sit quietly and watch a film. And it's even funny actually I can't remember a specific one, but going on a date with a girl only to find out that maybe they don't like a comedy or an action film or something, and you'd be like, oh, okay, we have a difference of opinion here. And it's like you start to learn not only that that's okay because you don't want to date yourself, so it's okay for people to not think the same way as you.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's extreme, if it's like, oh, I hate Jim Carrey, it's like, well, I'm going to leave you here and I'm going to go find someone else. As soon as you said that, as soon as you asked about training dates or training wheels, definitely every guy can say this, probably every girl too, but every guy has like the psycho, the crazy one, the okay, tell me when you get home, girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely had that. I remember vividly this one girl was just, like I'd go to work, I'd go to work, put my phone in my locker, and because I'd been at work and if I haven't replied, she'd go insane. I'd get like 50 messages. And when you're a teenager and you don't know that yet, you don't know what's going on. You're like, oh, am I in the wrong? Have I done something wrong? What's going on? Why doesn't she understand? Why, and it doesn't make sense. And then of course, then you get older and you go, yeah, she needed.
There's other stuff going on there. Yeah.
There's other stuff going on.
Yeah.
But when you're young, I mean, it's like she might not have understood either, but it's like, correct. I remember vividly, it's like, I don't want that.
I think everyone deserves somebody that is healthy and balanced and is the right fit, So what lessons would you say, other than that you don't want the unbalanced human being as a teenager, what would you say are the other lessons that you learned from your teenage relationships?
Well, okay, firstly, let's just say the unbalanced ones are still fun. You just have to work them out. Like we've all had those religious Tinder dates, right? They're a ball of laughs as long as you know how to, get around all those topics. But anyway, what have I learned? Well, it's looking back how I think now. So in my essence now, in my age and all that, it's, communication. Mm-hmm. And I think, to be honest, it's not being afraid to say you disagree or mm-hmm. you don't want to do that or have an opinion. When you're, no matter what age, when you're dating someone for the first time, first few months, you want everything to be perfect. So you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to say no to things. You want to, and that's okay to be like that as well. But you have to learn. And then I learned that it's okay to say, look, I'm not into that, or it's fine that you are. I'm not. You do it, but I don't want to do it. Or I'll drop you off. You do it. You go nuts. So. I think it comes back to communication.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Something that I've learned as I've gotten older is exactly what you said about it is okay to have different opinions to your partner. It's okay to not like the same things. And it's, I think it's really important that two individuals are true to themselves and then they come together as a good team rather than two halves not really knowing who they are, what they want or what they're about, trying to come together as a whole person. I think that's important that's an important lesson to learn, Stu.
Absolutely, yeah.
Guess what, lovers? The Catchalorette, there's always a catch, is back on stage in 2021. First up, The Mill, Adelaide Fringe Festival, from the 18th to the 28th of February, 7:30.
Tickets on sale at the Adelaide Fringe website.
From your teenage training wheel relationships, what happened after that?
It was funny. So from high school, when I was like just too confident, like just dripping with confidence and being that loudmouth school comedian, and having a ball at school, is going from that guy to university guy, which is a whole different kettle of fish, which is the fart jokes won't cut it anymore. Yeah. It's a different, it's like, oh, politics, okay, or whatever. Uni was I found myself in a 2-year relationship, which mm-hmm. I mean, obviously at the time was my longest, but yeah, up until that point, it became my most serious relationship, my longest relationship, and kind of the Uber training wheels, if you will. It was kind of like the absolute dress rehearsal before proper adult dating, I suppose you could say, because I learned everything. I learned everything in that relationship. So
how did that relationship start? Did you initiate or did she initiate?
I did.
Yeah.
No, she was in a uni class that I was in with her. That's English. There we go. I spotted her. She had this really infectious laugh, like a really loud. I used to give her crap about it because she would laugh, and I said something to her once, like, I'm like, you're not fooling anyone. I can see the pain behind your eyes, because she would laugh like full mouth open, and her eyes she'd look insane. So I used to say things to her, I'm like, it's okay. You don't, if it's not funny, you don't have to laugh. And I actually, my tactic was to pay her out and give her crap so much that I eventually asked her out, and she was completely taken by surprise, because for like 3 months I'd given her crap. And then out of nowhere, I'm like, do you want to get a coffee or something? And she was just like, what, really? I'm like, yeah. I said,
So you whittled it down until
Correct.
you... Oh, shit.
See, your words, I didn't want to say, look, I broke her down and then built her up. But if that's where you're going with it, that's fine, yeah. That's what boys do that. 5-year-old boys do that. They pick on the girl, tease the girl. They don't realise they like them, but they do. And
yeah, but is that legit, though? Is that just how we've been programmed to go about things?
Oh, I mean, yes and no.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's like you don't necessarily realise you're doing it. In this case, I mean, I didn't obviously deliberately whittle her down, but I knew I liked her. And my tactic was something I learned from high school was you don't simply go up to the girl and just flirt with them or tell them. So what's the exact opposite of that is she had these really lovely leaf earrings, really nice. Yeah. And I said to her once, the first day she wore them, and it's like a girl with a new haircut. The first day she wore them, her friend was like, "Oh, that looks really good." She turned and looked at me, and I said, "Well, did you just fall into the garden? Did you?"
Oh, Stewart!
It was funny. Like we all laughed about it, but it was like just give her the nudge.
So do you think that's an Australian thing? Because I know that's not an American thing. I think it's maybe it ties into the tall poppy syndrome thing a little bit.
I mean, a little bit. I've dated Canadians, British, and a girl from Singapore. It is very uniquely Australian, maybe even like UK.
Yeah.
I think it rattles in with the whole, being sarcastic, being able to laugh at yourself. I mean, there is a line. Obviously, some girls don't. I mean, and that was a good test for me because I'm naturally that guy. I'm naturally the funny, give a little bit of shit. But if I find a girl that can't take that, it's like, okay, well, I'll stop. I won't bother you. But it's like, you're not the girl for me then because, that's what I'm like. So
yeah, that's your humour. Yeah. So how did that relationship come to an end? Was it the end of your uni course and you guys both went, well, we've graduated, so I guess we graduate from this relationship? How did that all happen?
Yeah, she gave me a certificate and I doffed and I left the ceremony. No, it was just the tragic, started strong, went well, and kind of just imploded a bit. It got to the end and we were just getting older because it was that crucial period. I think we were like 20, 21, 22, finding our way in early 20s and university, and you start to develop other ideas about the world. And yes, we kind of just naturally drifted apart. Nothing happened. There was not like one event or anything. It just disintegrated in like an okay way. Yeah. I mean, we're still friends now. I mean, not catch up and go hang out friends, but we still talk occasionally. And it was an all-round adult relationship, the way it began, the way it, went through, and then the way it ended. So, yeah, no fireworks, not like high school days, when half the school found out and, do you remember those days where it's like, oh my God, Carla broke up with someone, Jesus, on the Oval.
I think the most brutal way that I broke up with somebody in high school was through a letter saying, I don't want to be your girlfriend anymore.
Yeah, texts and letters were pretty. Although the worst I ever did, and I'm not proud of this, but it was primary school. I sent my friend over to tell her.
Yeah, there's a lot of that happens, isn't there? There's a lot of that happens. And what did you say to the friend to get them to break up with your primary school girlfriend?
My mate James was more than happy to. It was his idea at first.
Oh, of course it was, because she was taking you away from him, probably.
I mean, look, probably. No, I remember this. It was just before graduation, and I ran up to give her a hug, and she recoiled for some reason. It was like, because it was in primary school, I think there was teachers around or something. She didn't want to be seen, hugging a boy or something, something silly.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, fine. We left, and James was like, you're going to put up with that? Like, what the hell, dude? Like, geez. And you're like, you're right. And he's like, I'll tell her right now. You want me to tell her? I'm like, yeah, do it, tell her.
Going back to the uni stuff, so after that relationship disintegrated, did you date a little bit before getting into the next relationship? How did that all unfold?
I instantly hooked up with her best friend, and then...
Stewart!
Hey, that's a two-way street, that one.
But she's not here. I can't tell her off. You're the only one that's here out of the two.
But when you think about it, because she had been at the third wheel for a little bit, and it's like I knew her just as well. She knew me, and it was natural. We just kissed at the party, nothing crazy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it was. There was a bit of a void because, as I'm sure you might have experienced yourself, it's like when you come out of a relationship that's, anything, it's like coming out of prison after 2 years, it's like, what do I do now? What did I used to do? Do I do that again? Like, what do I want?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a bit of and guys go through that period of, I think guys like instantly party, like they break up and they go, yes, I'm going to go out. I'm going to be with every girl, blah, blah, blah.
Does
Meanwhile,
that do anything? Does that... See, this is what I don't understand, Stuart. So, obviously, men and women have some similarities and then we have some differences, right? Mm. So, I've seen the majority of my mates break up with girls and go through the let's get smashed, let's hook up with everybody, let's get a vulva every 2 seconds. Like why is my first question. And second question to that is, does it help?
It depends on the relationship, right? So if it was a bad relationship, it does help. I've known guys, I've got a friend right now that he's had his beautiful dog stolen by his ex. Do you know what I mean? And she's gone full divorce mode as far as the dogs go, and she's been really horrible to him. So it's like, yeah, you encourage that friend to, it's not the end of the world. Get out there, go. It's like you don't have to get into a relationship again, but at least discover that not all people are like that. So in some cases, yes, but when I think what you're talking about and what I'm picturing is when you're like 19, 20, 21, you break up with a girl because you suddenly don't want to get too serious or whatever, some stupid reason jumps in your head. You break up with them and you go, fuck you, I'm going to go into surfers, or on the Gold Coast, you go, I'm going to go surfers. And as you said, get a vulva every
these are some of my friends who are getting divorced now. They go on a rampage and destroy as many vulvas as they can.
And rebuild. We will rebuild again. Well, I just love that. And I went through this too. I think every guy does. So you break up with a girl and then you instantly go party and the girl's usually crushed. But then it switches after about 3 months, sometimes 3 months, sometimes more or less. It's like it flips. The girl goes, I'm better off. And they do really well and they prosper and they go find dick every 5 minutes. And then the guy goes, oh, shit, I had it really good. And they try and repair the ridges and the vulvas and whatnot, and they try and go back. But, look, everyone's different. I don't think it helps personally. No, it's one of those things that guys mature so much slower, and the way that guys think, it's like, well, screw her, I'm going to go out and get everyone else. And the women's typically are a bit more emotional. But then when guys calm down and they think about it and stop acting like, men, they go, oh, okay, yeah, that was good. That relationship was good. And I could talk to that person and they were funny and they found the same things I found funny. And, you know, looking over at this person that I just met in the club, lying in this bed, it's like, I don't feel anything for this person. What have I done?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you think everybody at some stage does do that introspective, navigation to work out exactly what they do want in relationships?
Unless they are a toxic narcissist, yes.
Okay.
You just have to. It's natural, surely. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily something like it's not like you just get old and you do it. I think anyone can do it at any age, male or female, gay, straight, whatever. I think there's a moment when, they just have a good think about all that stuff. Sometimes they need to. Sometimes if they feel they need to, then maybe there's a problem, you know. But as well, it might be nothing. It might just be one of those reassuring moments like, yes, I am happy and I have got what I want and I'm very lucky and, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from the little dating, when you last dated, was Tinder around?
I'm not that old. Wow.
That's not what
yes.
I mean. I just don't know, like, the order of relationships and stuff like that.
To give you sort of a timeline, my fiance and I, Charlotte, just celebrated our 4 years being engaged because we're in no rush to get married, obviously.
Yeah, clearly.
But but no, we prior to Charlotte, I had a few Tinder dates, which were very interesting, as they always are. So.
Do you have any specific stories that you can remember from those Tinderella days?
That I can remember? I was blind drunk. Don't remember any of them. The one, two stick out. One girl was way too keen, as in way too. I mean, she was lovely, but she was really like, I called, you want to come back to my place and, let's hang out more. And she was really into it. And I was like, yeah, cool, of course. But at the same time, as a joke in my head, I'm like, she barely knows me. Like I could be collecting women's skin for all she knows. And she was just like really, really into it, like inviting me back. She's like, oh, here's a spare key to my house if you want to come around, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
yeah, your face is correct. It was just like, this is leading somewhere. It's like, is this like a trap? Am I on some sort of internet show? And the other one was just the cliched religious date, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, right.
It was, I literally went on it just to see if it was going to be what I thought it was. And it was. Within the first 5 minutes, she was like, just so you know, I'm not having sex before marriage because I'm saving myself for Jesus. And I was like, look, that's totally fine. I respect that. But it's like, why are you on Tinder exactly? What are you looking for? You can probably find exactly this relationship from a book group, or... Yeah,
or church.
Church. I did actually get a relationship out of Tinder that lasted for, I think it was about 9 months.
Right.
I found a Canadian girl who was studying here, and over text, over when you first meet on Tinder, over text, she was like interesting and funny, and we got on really well. And when we met up, it was fine. There was that sort of Canadian Australian divide for a little bit. And to be honest, at that time in my life where I was a bit down, I dated her to just simply have someone.
Yeah.
Knowing full well it wasn't going to last, and she wasn't the one or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the only girl that my mum has met and then said, I don't like her. She's not for you. My mum's one of those, loves everyone, can get along with everyone. And she was just like, no, not that one.
Speaking of the one, how did you know that Charlotte was the one? What was it that she did? Was there something that was there a moment where you're like, oh my God, it's her? What was the moment?
Probably the blowjob, yeah. No. It's so funny with Charlotte. We've gone through so much. We've known each other for over 10 years.
Right.
And we met. So, okay, here you go. At the party where I hooked up with my ex's best friend that I told you about, and then as soon as we kissed, it was like, oh, that was an experiment. We don't have to do that again. No, we're just friends, and that was that. At that same party, where I didn't know anyone, by the way, I was invited by that girl that I hooked up with to be like an icebreaker for some reason.
Yeah.
I didn't know anyone at this party, and it was a fancy dress party for a music theme.
Yeah.
And I was a blues brother, dressed as a blues brother, and everyone was like, "Oh, you Men in Black?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm Will Smith, clearly." And through the room, it was this cliched moment. Through the room, I saw this girl. In my memory, and Charlotte always corrects me, she looked like a wench, like dressed like a wench. I can't remember what the character was now, but she approached me, or I approached her, one or the other, and she's like, "Oh, Blues Brothers." And I was like, "Yes, thank you. Oh my God, everyone here is, stupid." And it was just one of those natural hit it off moments. We had a great conversation. She laughed, we laughed, blah, blah, blah. It was so natural. It was so easy, as in I wasn't putting any effort in. It just felt nice. It was like talking to a friend. And it was one of those, we ended up giving her a lift home. I got a number. We went to like the movie. As I was saying before, our first date was like to a movie, and it was to Watchmen. So you're taking a stranger on a first date to a movie that goes for over 2 hours.
Oh, dude.
in silence. But after that, we went to a place called Three Beans in Broadbeach, a coffee shop, but it used to be open 24 hours. And we sat there and spoke till like 1 a.m.
Wow.
And I mean, I don't even drink coffee. So it was like, this is something different and special. And like I said, that was at the beginning. That was over 10 years ago. And in that 10 years, it was like she moved overseas. I traveled. She came back. Then I moved overseas. And we'd always intertwine at some point. And like she'd be dating someone, I'd be dating someone. It was just, we never kind of got it together until, about 5 years ago now, which I can't believe it's been that long now. I think about it. But I was at my friend's engagement party, and I got this message from her saying, "Hey, I'm back and I'd love to catch up." And it was like that long. And I'd had a lot to drink, and I was actually on my friend's roof with my other friend.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Yeah. And I said to my friend, I'm like, "Oh, I need to reply so that A, she knows I've seen it and I care and I want to catch up and blah, blah, blah. But B, I need her to know that I'm really drunk." And he's like, yeah. So I finally landed on, "Hey." And that's it.
Oh my God, Stu.
That was enough, because the next day we met up, we had a great chat, and then the rest is history. Like 5 years later, engaged.
That's a beautiful story. I love that. You can make a movie out of that. There's so many, romantic movies where they miss each other for years, like, and they're in different places, and then all of a sudden it's like lightning.
It was. And it's funny, the full version, like with all the details, because it wasn't all roses. I remember telling my friends, I was like, "Oh, this and this and this." And he looked at me, and he's a bit older. I think he's like 45. And he looked at me and he said, "It just sounds like love to me." Oh. And I was like, fuck. I was like, that is so true and deep and wow. And I was like, yeah, you're right.
Very sweet, Stu. Very, very sweet.
So what's up next for you, Stu?
I'm kind of just, I've hermited myself away to just do writing for the last sort of year and a bit. So you're gonna get some films out of me real soon. We're making our first one in December. So yeah, we've moved away from the theatre.
Keep me posted
definitely.
with the film stuff, please. I'd love to see it, and I'll share it everywhere. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Stu. It's been lovely to see your face again.
You too.
And to have a chat. Have a lovely day, mate.
You too. Thank you. It's been a blast.
The Catchalorette, with friends near and far, from heartache to catfish and sex toys. The Catchalorette. next time if you dare.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back to the planet at no cost to you, and there's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement. Only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.